Hey everyone, I'm Melanie from Streamline Legal, where we help law firms get the most out of their practice management software. Today I'm talking directly to attorneys that use Clio and charge their client flat fees. So it's a really great idea if you're charging flat fees to go ahead and still track your time, because you want to be able to tell whether or not the flat fee that you're charging is appropriate for the services that you're providing. So we want to be able to track that and figure that out pretty easily, and Clio can help us do that. So I want to make sure that you guys know the best way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you here where we're working in Clio. And we'll take a minute here to look. I've got two different matters here. I've got the Smith matter, and then I've got the Jones matter, and we're going to take a look at both of these matters. Now, keep in mind for both of these matters, when I set this matter up, I told Clio that this was a flat fee. And this is the easiest way to handle it in Clio, because then it'll make your invoicing and everything else so much easier. I know a lot of people will tell Clio that it's an hourly case so that they can track their time. However, it's really not necessary and makes things a lot more complicated. So when we're looking at these billing preferences, I want you to go ahead and tell Clio that this is a flat rate, not an hourly matter, but a flat rate matter, and how much the rate is. So in this case, we put $5,000. So what happens then is once we put in that $5,000 flat fee, it's going to enter that as an activity, right, or a time entry. So we've got a flat fee of $5,000. And what happens is, as I continue to track time on this matter, I'm going to create a time entry. I'm going to go in and tell Clio that I spent 20 minutes on something. It knows it's the Smith case. It knows the date. It's automatically going to call that a non-billable entry because it knows we're charging a flat fee. We're not charging hourly. So I can place my entry in here and it's going to show up. For example, I have an hour for an initial planning meeting and it's going to show up as non-billable, right? Which means it's not going to bill the client anything for that time entry. It's only billing the client that $5,000 that I initially put in there. It's going to track that time, though, for me, the non-billable time, and it's going to assign a value to it. So based on my hourly rate, it says that was $350 for that hour of meeting with the client. So at the end of the matter here, I've got my time entries showing what I did on this case, and at the end of the matter, I can see my non-billable time was worth about $1,200. So when I compare that to the amount of money I actually billed the client, which in this case, we had the $5,000 flat fee, plus I went in and charged him hourly for funding the trust. So I went into my time entries and I unchecked non-billable for my funding of the trust so I could charge him hourly for that. So it gave me a complete bill of $5,525 for my client. But my non-billable time that I spent on this matter was $1,200, right? Plus the funding time of $525. So what we see here is that my non-billable time, which was a majority of my time here, was significantly less than what I billed out to the client in flat fees. And that's really what we're looking to compare, was what was the flat fee versus what did I spend in time or value of time to create that estate plan or that flat fee service. Now, there is an alternative, because remember, when you do it this way and call your time non-billable, those time entries will not show up on the client's bill. And so if you prefer to have those time entries show up on the client's bill, you can handle it a different way. So we'll take a look here at the Jones matter. And what I did on the Jones matter was I did the same time entries, but instead of making them non-billable, when I created the time entry, I unchecked the non-billable box and I made my rate $0 so the client would not be charged anything. And so what happened was I got all these time entries, an hour and a half, and They did not bill the client anything. Right now, the client's just being billed that $7,500 flat fee that I charged them at the beginning of the case, right? So it still tracks my time, and it still puts, now it will put this detail, the time entries, on the invoice for my client. So my client will see what's been done. However, what it doesn't do is it does not add up the value of my time for me to be able to compare and see if my flat fee was sufficient. So what happens is we lose the ability to have a very quick calculation of our time value when we handle it this way. Now, keep in mind, doing it this way so that the time entries show up on the bill, we can still export these time entries to Excel, and then we could put in the hourly rate and do the math and figure it out there to figure out how much we spent to provide this flat fee service. However, obviously that takes a lot more time. So my recommendation is to handle it the way that we looked at in the Smith matter and call it a flat fee matter, which we did in both these cases, but allow Clio to track your time as non-billable, which it will try to do by default. That way you get the value of your non-billable time. Now, of course, the entries will not show up on the invoice, but that is the trade-off, right? So it's either get the easier calculation or have the time entries show up on the invoice. So I think this method is a lot easier. I think that the other thing I want to warn you guys about is the idea that make sure you check with your state bar or local bar association, because there are places where it can cause an issue if you're providing your clients with the detailed invoices when you're charging them a flat fee, because then we get into the question of, was the fee earned and at what point was it earned? And those rules, of course, vary by jurisdiction, so make sure that you're looking into that before you make your decision on how to proceed with these invoices. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this helps you to be able to calculate very quickly the value of your flat fee services so that you can see if you're charging enough for those services. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Have a great evening.